Hey friends, Neil here from Post to Post. The playoffs are underway. We're about halfway through the first round, and as we've done last year in the playoffs, and I think the year before as well, at this time of the year, I always like to dive into the standings of the regular season, flip things on their head a little bit, and just see what would 1 versus 16 be like if the playoff format was that. Currently, we have wild card East-West, but if East-West didn't matter, and this will never happen, but if it didn't matter, and we really went with straight up 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, so on, what would the matchups be? I like those hypotheticals, so that's what we're going to dive into this video. Not only tell you what the matchups would have been, but also look into those new series and I guess decide, are they better than what we have right now? And maybe that's going to determine the ultimate decision of should we go 1 versus 16 or keep what we have. So let's first go through what 1 versus 16 in the standings was from this season. So starting off with number 1 was Winnipeg, 2 was Washington, 3 was Vegas. This actually surprised me a little bit. I actually thought Vegas would have been like 5 or 6 in my brain, but they were 3rd. Toronto was 4th, Dallas was 5th, LA was 6th, Tampa was 7th, Colorado was 8th, Edmonton was 9th, Carolina was 10th. Again, kind of a weird one for me. I would have thought in my mind Carolina was above Edmonton, and maybe Carolina was above Colorado as well. But yeah, Carolina was 10th. 11th was Florida. 12th was Ottawa. 13th was Minnesota. 14th, St. Louis. 15th, Calgary. Calgary makes the playoffs in this scenario. So 15th, Calgary. And 16th, the New Jersey Devils. That means the Montreal Canadiens do not make the playoffs in this scenario. Montreal Canadiens did not come in the top 16, did not come in the first half of the league. They came in the bottom half of the league. So Montreal should not be in the playoffs, hypothetically, in this scenario. So let's go to matchups. Maybe what I'll do is I'll read all the series, and then we'll kind of revisit them and talk about each one. So Winnipeg versus New Jersey Devils. That's the best team in the league, playing the worst team in the league that made the playoffs, 16th. So that should be, hands down, an easy win for Winnipeg, right? Right? I don't know these days. The second series, number 2 versus number 15, that's Washington-Calgary. Okay. 3 versus 14, that's Vegas versus St. Louis. That would be interesting. 4 versus 13, that's Toronto versus Minnesota. 5 versus 12, that's Dallas versus Ottawa. I don't think we've ever seen that before. 6 is LA versus Florida. 7 versus 10 is Tampa versus Carolina. And 8 versus 9 is Colorado versus Edmonton. So let's rewind a little bit and let's go talk about 1 versus 16, Winnipeg versus New Jersey. Here's where I kind of marked on my list. Is this series more interesting than what Washington has, or that Winnipeg has now, or more interesting than what the New Jersey Devils has now? So I'm looking at Winnipeg and I'm thinking, okay, they're playing in a pretty interesting series right now against St. Louis. St. Louis came into the playoffs hot. Winnipeg had an amazing year, but St. Louis has been on fire, and that has been a really, really good series so far. Some of the best hockey I've watched in moments of that series. So I had to say no. Winnipeg versus the Devils wouldn't be more interesting than Winnipeg versus St. Louis is now. So that's kind of a red for Winnipeg there. And then the Devils, I don't know how many people are watching the Carolina versus Devils series. I suspect not a lot because there are a lot more interesting series on paper out there with bigger fan bases. Like obviously there's a lot of Canadians watching Toronto versus Ottawa. But I'm telling you, if you've not watched Carolina versus New Jersey, it is such a good series. Some of the best hockey I've watched in a long time. Please tune in if you get the chance. So for this scenario, the Devils versus the Jets, I marked the Devils as red as well. I don't think this is a better series, entertainment-wise, for either team. So that's a red across the board for 1 versus 16. 2 versus 15, Washington versus Calgary. Washington currently is, I would say, having an easy time with Montreal. I think Montreal at their best, which they're probably pretty close to now, is competitive with like regular Washington. But if Washington turns it on, Montreal can't compete with, like maximum Montreal can't compete with maximum Washington. Right now, Washington, in my opinion, is not playing on their maximum. So I think if they really were, this series might maybe over already. As I'm filming this, it's 3-1 Washington. So I think Washington's having an okay time with Montreal. So would Washington versus Calgary be more entertaining or maybe more competitive? I don't know if it would be. I don't know. That's not a shot against Calgary. I just see the same scenario. Maximum Calgary can't really compete with Maximum Washington. Now, that's in a hypothetical world where we get Maximum Washington, but I still don't know if Washington Calgary would be more interested in Washington Montreal, because that game the other night, not game 4, but game 3, was unbelievable. So I left this one blank for Washington. I left it not colorized. And Calgary. So Calgary is not in the playoffs. I have nothing to compare it to, so I just left it white. So white across the board there. Not better, not worse. I just kind of left it as is. And, maybe Washington Calgary would be a little bit better than Montreal. I just don't know. But I don't think it would be drastically better. So we'll leave Washington colorless. 3 versus 14, Vegas versus St. Louis. I think this would be a really, really good series on paper. I think it would be super entertaining. Maybe a sneaky little series that a lot of people wouldn't expect to be amazing, but I feel like it would be a shocker. A very, very good series. But Vegas is playing Minnesota right now. And I didn't think that series was going to be as entertaining as it was. And it is so, so good. I can't really hypothesize that Vegas St. Louis is going to be better than Vegas Minnesota, because Vegas Minnesota is really, really good right now. So I can't really mark a green for Vegas. I think at best it's probably as good. So we'll leave it uncolored. And St. Louis, they're currently playing the Winnipeg Jets and hanging in to that series, hanging in on the series. That's some good hockey. So I don't know if St. Louis Vegas would be better. I can't really say that. So I have to leave them uncolored as well. So white across the board for 3 versus 14. 4 versus 13, that's Toronto versus Minnesota. Well, currently Toronto is playing Ottawa. That's a pretty watched series. Almost every game's gone to overtime. I don't remember actually if the last game went to overtime, but so good. It's such a good series. So there's no way that, in my mind, Toronto versus Minnesota is better than Toronto Ottawa. So I guess from Toronto's perspective, I have to kind of maybe mark them as red. Minnesota versus Vegas currently is really, really good. But I really do think that Minnesota-Toronto would be a really good series from the Minnesota standpoint. They're the state of hockey. They're playing the city in Canada with, I guess, the most, if we're looking geographically, the most condensed hockey fan base in Canada, right around Toronto in the GTA. That's so many Leafs fans there. So the state of hockey versus that clump of Toronto Maple Leafs fans just going at it. Like, I think that's a pretty interesting matchup, and I think it would be really good hockey as well, just in general. So I don't know if it's a better matchup for Minnesota, or more entertaining rather, or necessarily worse. So I left Minnesota unchecked. So maybe not better or not worse. Okay, 5 versus 12, that's Dallas versus Ottawa. I think both matchups are worse entertainment-wise in this scenario than they are right now. Dallas is playing Colorado. That's a pretty crazy series. Ottawa's playing Toronto. That's an amazing series. So Dallas versus Ottawa, yeah, it'd be probably pretty good, but I don't know if it's better than what we currently have, so I marked both red there. 6 versus 11. That gives us LA versus Florida. Well, LA versus Edmonton, that's been pretty good hockey. It's been really good hockey, and they have a bit of a rivalry going from the past 3 years or whatever it's been, so I don't think Florida is a more entertaining matchup for LA than Edmonton. So on the other side, Florida, is LA a more entertaining matchup than Tampa Bay, their interstate rival? No, they're not. So Tampa versus Florida is more entertaining in my perspective than LA versus Florida. So I put red for both. Again, I red for LA and red for Florida. Hey, yep, still Neil. Apologies for the weird cut in this video. I'm not even wearing the same jersey, and the background's a little bit different. So the file that I was recorded was corrupt. Just the middle of it. Just the part where I talk about 2 specific series. So it will cut back to other me here in a little bit, but I had to refilm this section, just so you know, for Tampa Bay versus Carolina, 7 versus 10, and Colorado versus Edmonton, 8 versus 9. So I'll kind of redo what I said, but basically it's pretty quick. Tampa versus Carolina would be a really, really good series. You're talking about 2 fan bases that were relatively small, 15, 20 years ago, and they both exploded. They have huge fan bases now. Carolina and Tampa Bay have massive fan bases, and on paper maybe they shouldn't. Okay, they're not really in areas that have a lot of hockey fans and hockey in general, but they have flourished. They have done so well. Both have been very successful. Obviously, Tampa Bay with the Stanley Cup, but Carolina's been very competitive as well. So those 2 teams playing one another would be excellent hockey, and I think they did recently play each other. Maybe not, but I feel like they have, and I feel like it was really good. But anyways, I would love to see them. But I still don't think that Tampa versus Carolina is better than Tampa versus Florida. So I have to put red for Tampa there. And Carolina, they're facing the Devils. On paper, I would rather see them play Tampa, because I think that would be very entertaining. But the New Jersey-Carolina series has been probably my favorite series so far in this playoffs. I've just personally found it super entertaining. I really have enjoyed watching it. So to me, I can't look at this now and be like, Tampa would be better, because I really have enjoyed New Jersey, Carolina that much. So I actually have to mark Carolina as red here as well. I don't think this is the more entertaining matchup, which is weird to say. Maybe I might regret this depending on how the rest of the series goes. Maybe Carolina dominates the rest of the series. I don't know, but right now it's super entertaining. So I think Carolina's a better team, obviously, but I think New Jersey, they've never been swept. That's pretty cool to say. So moving on to 8 versus 9, that's Colorado versus Edmonton. So Colorado is facing Dallas right now. There's already a rivalry there. Is there a rivalry between Colorado versus Edmonton? I don't know, maybe a little bit. But Colorado versus Dallas, that's set in stone. So I think this matchup is probably worse for Colorado than it is Dallas, but it still would be really entertaining because of all the stars on both sides. That's a lot of star power going head to head. So yes, the rivalry exists with Colorado versus Dallas, but and not saying there's not stars in Dallas, because there is, but I would love to see McDavid versus McKinnon. Like, I think that would be an incredible matchup. And there's obviously other star power in Edmonton as well. So I felt like I couldn't mark Colorado red here. I kind of left them uncolored. And then Edmonton, kind of the same scenario, I guess. Like, the rivalry is there with LA. LA and Edmonton, they do have a rivalry now. It's not massive, but it is there. Does Edmonton have a rivalry with Colorado, looking the opposite way? From Edmonton's perspective, no, not really. But Edmonton versus Colorado is, or could be, more interesting because of the star power than Edmonton, LA. Edmonton historically has kind of dominated LA in the last 3 years or whatever with the head-to-head series and stuff. So I think based on that, I would probably find Edmonton versus Colorado maybe a little bit more interesting. Again, going back to the star power. So I can't really mark Edmonton red here as well. It could be more entertaining. It could not be, but it could be. So I just felt comfortable not marking Colorado or Edmonton. I just left them blank for this one. So yeah, this is the inserted video. Back to other Neil. So if I introduce all of the colors for all of the matchups here, not a single team, in my personal opinion, is green, which equals they are in a more entertaining situation from a fan's perspective in this 1 versus 16 scenario than what we have currently. So I would definitively say, at least this year, that 1 versus 16 would be less entertaining to us hockey fans than what we currently have, which is the wildcard system. Now, that doesn't mean there's another systems available, 1 versus 8. That's that's what the NHL used to do. That's also an option. We can revisit that, or we can visit that rather in a separate video if you like. If you guys are interested, let me know down below in the comment section. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. Like, obviously this is my video. I'm sharing my opinion. I would say that it's not as interesting, but I don't think I'm right. I'm just investigating. I'm talking out loud. I would love to hear your opinion down below. Are any of the series that we went through in the potential 1 versus 16, are any of them more interesting than what we have now for maybe each of the individual teams? Or do you agree with me and you think that this would be a worse system this year than what we currently have? Hope you're watching hockey regardless of what you think, and hope you're enjoying the playoffs even if your team's not in the playoffs. I am struggling a little bit with my Montreal Canadiens because obviously I want them to win, but at the same time, I almost sometimes enjoy when they're not in the playoffs, so I can just enjoy hockey stress-free, and I don't have to think in the back of my head, oh yeah, they play tomorrow, that's going to be stressful. Oh, they play tonight. I can't really watch any other hockey because I need to be in it, right? So, yeah. Hope you're watching hockey and hope you're having fun. And it's playoffs time. It's the best time of year. So yeah, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Let me know down below in the comment section how you feel about this 1 versus 16. And I'll talk to you guys very soon in the future. Adios.